Welcome everyone to my presentation. First and foremost, I want to say congratulations to everyone who has made it. It's been a struggle, it's been difficult, it's been nothing short of stress and anxiety, but we have made it. We're here, and I hope to see everyone in graduation. So, my proposal and my study was a study into bilingual equity and equality. So, let's go over the agenda for today for this presentation. First, is the introduction of me. The purpose of this project, initial qualitative data, some initial quantitative data, uh, some of the progression of the study, ups and downs that happen throughout the year, some issues that arise with administration, the outcomes of the study, and my final thoughts. Okay, so an introduction about me. My name is Camilo Bonilla. I was born in Medellin, Colombia, 1986. I've been a citizen of the United States since 1987. I'm the father of four wonderful children. I'm the handsome young fellow on the right, holding my dog Panda, my daughter Sophia, Gabriel in the white shirt, Daniel in the blue shirt, and my wonderful wife, pregnant with my son, who you see smiling. His name is Emmanuel. I believe that that's enough to win me the A. So, 8 years as a bilingual math teacher. I've been teaching at Passaic High. It's my alma mater. Prior to that, I was 3 years as a two exam actuary for MetLife Insurance in Manhattan, and I'm a William Patterson alumni. So, the purpose of this project, let's first go over some observations. So, observations prior to the project: one, bilingual and ELLs were students, ELL standing for English Language Learners, were experiencing poor assistance during tutoring because there were no Spanish speaking teachers available. Now, at the school, at Passaic High School, it's not so much the teachers did not speak Spanish, it's teachers were not li- uh, licensed or certified to teach in Spanish. So, so due to directives from the administration, if you were not dubbed or are a bilingual teacher, they requested that you did not teach them in Spanish for liability reasons. Second, we began to notice a trend in level 3 and level 4 English language learners. They were showing poor or declining performance in their English only courses. So at a level 3, you have about out of 8 courses, you have about 3 to 4 are courses that you take in English, and once you're level 4, all of your classes are in English. This is to seems to be the happy blend or that Passaic High School or the Passaic School District believes that students should do in order to become fully immersed in English. Number three, guidance counselors weren't allowed to inform students of their rights unless students explicitly asked for their options. So I guess this was a technical way for Passaic to get around withholding rights. Um, I believe that it was unfair, but at the same time, if the student asked, it was basically a situation in which ask and you shall receive. I still believe that that's unfair, but it's technically it's not illegal to do so. Lastly, there were no resources that inform students of their rights except through the administration and guidance counselors. Again, at the beginning of this study, this is the situation in which it was. If a student came in and asked about their options, easily they received them. And uh, if that went out through the grapevines, so be it. But technically, it wasn't immediately available to everyone. So the purpose of this project is to one, inquire about the equity of resources for bilingual students. Two, to determine the accessibility of those resources. Three, to determine the proactive measures for the creation of resources for ELLs. Four, how ELLs and their families are being informed about their rights under Every Student Succeeds and NJAC 6A15. Now, Chapter 16A, 6A, that colon 15. This was the bill that characterized bilingual education for the state of New Jersey. And the most important line of that bill is that all bilingual education should be equal to that of the monolingual education. So there should be no resources or courses that are limited to bilingual students. There are still some issues with that because if you just simply don't have a bilingual chemistry teacher, you can't give bilingual students chemistry. If you do not have a bilingual physics teacher, can't give bilingual students physics. So there are still some loopholes in there that schools can use. And lastly, create a classroom with a support staff for English language learners courses. Okay, so let's talk about the qualitative data. Qualitative data was given in the form of a survey. 71 students were asked to complete a 5 questions in a survey. All questions were measured on a scale of 1 to 4, and these were the following questions. 1, are you aware of services or resources that can assist you in your studies? And this is outside of classroom, outside of uh, asking your guidance counselors and administration, like what places can you go that you could immediately identify to go help you with your academics? 2, how do you feel your education compares to your monolingual friends? So, although the law states that it should be equal, but how do you feel it compares when you speak to your monolingual friends? 3, other than language, do you feel that your classes are tailored to your needs? How do your classes help you in your deficiencies? How do these classes tailor to SIFE students? SIFE students are students with interrupted formal education. How do these classes tailor to them? Are courses just a stencil? All of these kind of the inquiries that you make as you ask these questions. 4, how aware of you are of your rights as a bilingual student? What do you know? What do you know you can do? What do you know you can't do? What are you allowed to do? Okay. 5, are you aware of where to access information regarding your rights as a bilingual student? So let's say you don't know something, but you want to inquire about it. Do you know where to go? Again, accessibility. Okay. So let's go with some of the initial qualitative data. Okay. So to answer question one, 87.7% of students are aware of 2 or fewer resources. And these resources, when asked about those who know, um, mostly just said after school tutoring and Apex credit recovery. Apex credit recovery is the online virtual courses that students can take if they have failed courses in previous years. This doesn't necessarily give them an out because the work is just as much as taking the class in person. Only this time it's in English only. So if you're a level 1 or a port of entry student, port of entry is that you know 0% English. Port of entry level 1 student, your your capacity to finish an Apex course becomes significantly harder because Apex is only in English. But if you're level 4, it's business as usual. Okay? All right. So, how do you feel that your education compares to your monolingual friends? 88.7% feel that their education is relatively fair or better, and the majority of students believing that they're receiving a fair education or some sort of advantage. Okay. That is 55.7% are said 3 or 4 on their survey, which is great because it's good to know that students are walking into your classroom feeling that they are not going to be at a deficit if they were to leave your class in June. Okay. Question is, other than language, how do you feel your classes are tailored to your needs? 73.2% felt that their classes did not address their specific needs. These are students that marked a 1 or a 2 on their survey. And when I inquired about that, it was mostly because students recognize that they are SIFE. Now, it's good to know that SIFE students, because they haven't been in a classroom for at least 3 or more years, they don't have an academic disability. They have an academic deficiency. So, a student who is considered a ninth grader who hasn't been in the class since the fifth grade, it's difficult to measure or equate them to ninth grade. Um, because they're still missing those 4 years of school, or 3 years, or sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, 3 years of school. So by law, every Student Succeeds Act, the students are placed according to their age level, not their retention or academic abilities. So there is some inequity issues arising there. Um, if you haven't we In an extreme case, there was a student who hasn't been in school since the first grade, and he was 16 years old, placed into ninth grade algebra. That student was set up to fail. All right. On the other hand, some students, they might have missed 1 or 2 years, and they get right back on the bicycle as business as usual. Okay. And when students were asked about what needs needed to be addressed, it was mostly how to read, writing better, fundamental arithmetic and mathematics. So these students recognized that it wasn't so much that they were unable to do the material. It's just they had a difficult time with the fundamentals, with the bread and butter, with the basics. So it how was the school going to provide them with this assistance if nothing existed? Right. How aware of you are your rights as a bilingual student? 73.9% of students were unaware of their rights. Now, number two, when students ranked it a two, it must be that parents were informed, okay? And understand that Passaic is an urban community. There is a large percentage of undocumented parents and families. To my knowledge, a lot of families are afraid to speak up with fear of being persecuted and deported. So, there is a lot of simple acceptance. If the teachers or counselors say one thing, they simply accept it, they don't question, there's no resistance. um and when there's no resistance, I'm pretty sure that it could seem as if districts get a little bit confident in their ways because there's nothing to challenge them. For students that knew of their rights, they understood things such as bilingual students and ELLs get extended times on tests. That means classroom, district benchmarks, state benchmarks. They receive time and a half, had to by law. Um, Classes can be in Spanish at their request after exiting. So if a student was failing science or biology in English and they recently left the program within 2 years, they can request to take that biology class in Spanish, and the school would have to abide by that. But again, a lot of these rights, it wasn't so much that they were hidden or kept from students. Students had to ask about it. So if the student didn't quote or explicitly tell administration that it was their right, the administration and guidance did everything possible to keep the student in the English course. I believe that's a disservice, but the administration hides behind the veil of we're doing things that are in the best interest of the students. And I feel like that is such a bad position to be. If the student is failing and they're requesting to go to an atmosphere or an environment that is more comfortable or suitable for them, we should be listening to them. Again, uh, these are all insinuations that are taken from these kind of surveys. Uh, um, can't accuse a school district of blatantly uh, keeping or uh, keeping these or restricting the rights of students. It's just insinuations. There are no accusations here. Are you aware of where to access information regarding your rights as a bilingual student? 65.4% of students, the ones that ranked one and two, were not aware of where to access their rights. And students, when I asked them, the students that did know, they said that they either received their information from guidance counselors or the Hispanic Information Center or City Hall. The Hispanic Information Center and City Hall have departments that focus on the rights of ELL students. These people are informed, but again, not everyone knows that these places exist. So, again, it's about accessibility to these things. How explicit uh, is this information given? Okay. More initial qualitative data, but in this case, I sent my survey out to every parent, but I only got 34 responses, and it was a quick survey, 3 questions. Again, a scale of 1 to 3, and the questions were: How informed are you of your child's rights as a bilingual slash ELL student? How do you feel guidance counselors, teachers, or administrators inform you of your choices as a parent? And 3, are you aware of any resources that can help you in knowing more about your choices as a parent of an ELL student or the rights of your child as an ELL student? Again, accessibility and who is able to give you this information if you asked for it. Okay. So 34 parents, 91.2% of parents knew little to no rights for their students. Again, these things weren't explicit. These things weren't blatantly given. There wasn't a pamphlet or anything for parents to know. It's if you asked, we tell you, but we're not going to just openly tell you. Again, it's not illegal to do this practice. All right. It's if you ask, we'll tell you, but if you don't ask, have a nice day. Post survey, many parents requested information regarding the academic rights of their child. So parents who reached out and said, "Hey, would you be able to send me something? I'd like to know this stuff." I was happy to send it to them. How do you feel guidance counselor, teachers, and administrators inform you of your rights? 91.1% of parents receive their information from school employees. So, again, if they asked, they received. Again, and as I say here, information was given to parents on an ask and you shall receive basis. It, I feel like it's a dirty trick, but it's just the practice, and there's nothing wrong with it, according to in the eyes of the law. And lastly, how aware of your resources that can help you in knowing more about your choices. 94.1% of parents knew some to no resources. And school administrators were asked by parents for resources regarding their parents. I had the rights of their children. I had parents who just called the principal, and this is how administration found out about my survey. My mentor in the school building understood what I was doing and she was fine with it, but not every other administrator was on board. Um, and we'll go into details that in another section. Okay. Let's go into some of the initial quantitative data, excuse me. This was data from my classroom. Okay. So baseline data was from the NWEA map testing. This is just a generic test that gauges students and determines them if they're at level. Okay, and it was independent. This isn't something from the Passaic School District, so I felt like it was a great tool to set a baseline. Okay, and the baseline data was compared to 2 other times during the school year: one in January for the mid-year, and one in April for the end of year assessment. And my scores were also based uh, compared to another bilingual math teacher, Miss Rosales. We compared our courses together and were able to get enough quantifiable data to get accurate measurements. Okay, so I have 2 sets of groups. Okay, so I have my level 3s and 4s, who are 16 students. For group one, fall 2021 IRT, that's their the score in which they achieved in the first uh, in the baseline. Okay, as you can see, let me put it. A 215 is at level for ninth grade algebra. So we started the year with some students either at, a few students at, or many of them close to that 215 mark. Again, these are level 3s and level 4s. They were a little bit more advanced if in their English and in their mathematics. Why this population is so small. Okay, and excuse the small numbers, but my group two, these were my port of entry level 1 and level 2s. These were the students who had little to no English. Okay, this doesn't reflect their mathematics, but I did separate them by English levels. Okay, so number one is that my group two students are mostly SIFE. Again, SIFE are students with interrupted formal education. They have academic deficiencies. So if you look on their same one fall 2021 RIT score, again, some scored at grade level. Most of them were approaching, very few more than 15 to 20 points behind. There were some that were very close, and some outliers, but we still always accepted them. Okay. Now, as the study progressed, in mid-January, Ms. Rosales left the district, so I there was no teacher to replace her classes, and so I no longer had students to compare. So my quantitative data took a huge shot. The administration stifled much of my attempts to help parents and students understand their rights. Um, because these were legal terms, I had an administrator tell me that giving people legal advice was illegal. I don't feel like I was giving anyone any legal advice. I was simply telling them what the text was saying, but at the request of administration, I had to take precautions. The end of year assessment, which is usually given in May, was pushed up to April, and I haven't been able to give it because I have to give it next week. But it's supposed to be done before the NJSLA testing rather than before district finals. Central administration wants to compare the data entering uh, the NJSLA testing, and of the 71 original students, 7 left the district. And in November, the school agreed to create a bilingual specific tutoring program. While this was a great advancement, uh, step forward in what was done, uh, they couldn't always have all 5 days, morning and afternoon, a math teacher, or every day a history teacher or a science teacher. So, although the program was created, having a bilingual teacher of a specific content area was still difficult to attain, to maintain. So the capacity to have every type of student of teacher available was still difficult. But at least it was a start. Again, this is the first year that it was done. Okay, so let's talk about these challenges with the administration. Okay, one administrator asked was they were not opposed to giving students and parents resources, but giving them direct advice could lead to serious repercussions. Here's where giving them legal advice or going out of my way to inform them was simply not acceptable. If the parents were curious, they could ask. So I began to create um, flyers, simply telling parents, if you have questions about the bilingual education, feel free to email me. And that throughout the year is how I was able to inform more parents. I just, the flyer informed them of, and if it sparked their curiosity, they would email me. Um, one administrator spoke to the central administration attorney, and he believed that I was giving legal advice. I wasn't. And they simply told me that giving legal advice could lead to termination. I don't know if that was a threat, but this was the issue at hand. Guidance counselors were given directives to place level 3 and level 4 students or exited students to take English only courses. If the student didn't know that they had the opportunity to go back into a Spanish only class for a content, then the students was just left in their English class and they would have to kind of figure it out. While I understand how important it is for the students to learn English, I don't feel like it should come at the detriment of their GPA, risk them losing chances or opportunities to colleges or whatnot. If the student is asking for it, you should be giving them to them, and you shouldn't wait for them to tell you the exact paragraph or sentence of law for you to react. You should just be doing it. That's just my opinion. And they were simply, guidance counselor was simply to take every measure possible to keep the student from backtracking to Spanish speaking courses. They kind of want them to stay in English. Again, administration hides behind the veil of we're doing this in the best interest of the student. And I feel like that's a cop out, but that's just my opinion. Okay. So let's talk about some of the outcomes of my study. Okay. The bilingual program was created, and there were students who began participating, which was great. Student and parent comfort levels in engaging administrators and guidance counselors regarding educational decisions increased. One guidance counselor, who her and I have a very good relationship, began to tell me how a lot of parents began taking advantage and using the text to make better decisions. Some students were doing, who would get very good grades. They're able to learn the material. It was just the language barrier was keeping them behind. So a lot of good decisions were made for students. Bilingual guidance counselors created pamphlets and a little couple pages of documents with rights for parents, and we're just giving them to them as new entrants entered. So you kind of put the ball in the parents' court, where the students were in the students in the parents' court, where now they would have to read what their rights are. This was not previously done, and it was good to know that my mentor approved of this, because now I couldn't be told that I was giving them legal advice. I was giving them the information and leaving it up to them to read it. And my classrooms, because for the first 4 months, Miss Rosales came to my classroom and she would help me. So we had a support system for my classes, for my students. We saw a significant increase in student achievement, which I'll show you. Okay, so here's the student growth. This is the same photo as before. So if you compare the RIT score from the fall to the winter mid-course growth, every 15 points is more or less a grade level. Starting from 215, it puts you at ninth grade. So we have 63% of their student. If you also compare, for example, their projected growth. Now, these projected growths were what the district calculated every student should needed according to their fall score. So every student in green was a student that met their projected target after 4 months. Okay. And if you see, some of them had 1, 2, 3 points to go up. Some did 6, 7, 16 points. And of those students, we see a lot that are very close to approaching grade level in only 4 months. So there was some significant progress done in the classroom. And here's for my SIFE students, my level ones, port of entries, level twos. We had 55% of the students meet their projected growth score after 4 months. And of that 55%, which was 23, six surpassed grade level. So we saw some amazing achievement from my students. Some did absolutely amazing. So there is something in having a support teacher for our bilinguals, okay? All right, so some final thoughts. Okay. Um, Even though the administration didn't openly hinder or explicitly say stop telling parents what to do, I felt like any opposition, any form of resistance was an oppositional position. Uh, I feel like I wasn't misinforming parents or giving them any form of disinformation. I was giving them law. Uh, and if we want our students and parents to make better decisions, we should be giving them the resources they need to do so, not wait for them to ask. Two, team teaching with Ms. Rosales proved effective for my students. Um, Maybe there is something to be said about some of these bilingual courses needing a support staff, two teachers, co teachers. And lastly, I was glad to see that counselors were very open to giving parents and students information regarding their rights. I feel like the more informed we have, parents we have and students, the better our culture and communities can grow. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening.